So, wrestling family, we have another report of a potential Bloodline member being signed to WWE. And I feel like I run into one of these articles every single day. Every single day. I run into them more than I run into Zubat and Mount Doom, more than I run into political yard signs in the past couple months, more than I've run into a Raid Shadow Legends ad 2 years ago on every YouTuber's channel. And that's a lot. And that's a lot. But I will say this. I don't mind this at all, because the fact that someone is able to get their family signed at WWE, especially in one of the biggest moments in Polynesian wrestling history, as far as the Bloodline goes, on the biggest pro wrestling promotion in the world, I don't mind that. You getting them a bag, and then when they leave, if they do leave and go back to the independent scene, now their name has a little bit more weight and they can garner more money everywhere they go. So I don't mind that. I know a lot of people have a problem with nepotism, and I understand that, because maybe your favorite wrestler got released recently and you're like, okay, well, you feel like that you don't know much about Lance and you've never seen their matches or his matches, and you feel like that he's only signed on because of his relation to Roman Reigns, which is his cousin. I can understand that viewpoint only if you actually watch Lance, his matches in MLW. If you haven't, to each their own. To each their own. But this also brings up the question. By adding more members to the Bloodline, because remember, WWE reportedly signed Hikuleo to NXT. Reportedly, we still haven't seen him yet. But if they are all going to be added to the Bloodline, which I don't believe every Polynesian wrestler that signs to WWE needs to be a part of the Bloodline, the question is, will this dilute the storyline? And this is, I mean this by this, if you add more members, and if that stretches out the storyline, will this get diluted? Will it give people PTSD from when how NWO was back in the day, where they were part of the announce team, where they were in the audience, the custodians with NWO, the people working at craft services with NWO, the garbage truck company was NWO. That really didn't happen, but it just felt like everybody was NWO, and it became exhausting just to see it just didn't feel special anymore, because it was just, everybody was just a part of it, you know? So will that happen here? Now, I will say that there were moments where the Bloodline storyline did feel dry. Remember, it was good, and then before Sami Zayn joined it, it got dry. People were tired of it, and then Sami Zayn reinvigorated interest into the storyline, which I feel like this did great things for Sami Zayn, for people who weren't really fans of his, because that was the most sympathetic, or most sympathy he's gotten from people who probably weren't big fans of his, and the biggest he's ever been as a babyface, in my personal opinion. You know, as far as storyline, you can argue NXT, you can argue with him having a title run with the IC title, whatever. But as far as within the storyline, I feel like this is the biggest thing Sami Zayn has done in WWE on the main roster. And then we had moments where people were just completely out of the Bloodline storyline, and then The Rock showed up and he reinvigorated people's interest, even people outside of WWE, to come back and be interested in what happens in the Bloodline, even to the point where YouTubers who've never watched wrestling and haven't watched wrestling in the past decade or so ended up watching WrestleMania last year and end up like reacting to the WrestleMania kickoff show. And then we fell into the drought once again, especially when Roman Reigns left and Solo broke off and started his Bloodline 2.0. And when Jacob Fatu came back, even though people weren't interested because they didn't know who he was, once they got familiar to how great he was in the ring, then people got more interested in the storyline, but more into Jacob Fatu as potentially being the tribal chief. And then when Roman Reigns came back at SummerSlam, that got people's interest back in it because they missed Roman. But no disrespect to Lance or Hikuleo, they are not The Rock, and they are not Sami Zayn, you know. So I wonder where this is going to go, how they're going to expand this. But you know what? Before we get into that, let's just go ahead and read this article, guys. I forgot this article was up here, man. This is what I get for yapping. But let's read this article right here. It says, it appears that as if the bloodline in WWE will only continue to grow with the reported signing of Lance Anoia. Lance Anoia, formerly of the MLW, was a member of the Samoan SWAT team with Jacob Fatu and Juicy Finau. Anoia and Finau are former MLW World Tag Team Champions. Anoia was granted his release from MLW in late 2023. Wow, they put his last name a lot in here. And we got to remember, too, for those who don't remember, Lance was signed to WWE before, so this isn't a new thing. I think he was signed 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember he had a match with him and Shane McMahon, and Shane McMahon won the match by putting him in the triangle choke. And after he choked him out, then Drew McIntyre came out, where he came into the ring because he was at ringside for Shane McMahon, and you know they were working together. And Drew McIntyre came into the ring, picks up Lance. Shane started giving him bops, hit him with the triangle chokehold once again, and he was talking crazy stuff in the mic like, oh, your dad's not here. If your dad was here, I will have him in the same move. I'll be knocking him back and forth. Shane was diabolically disrespectful. And then we saw Roman Reigns come out and then save Lance, and then that's just how that whole thing ended. You know, and if you didn't know, Lance is his cousin. But, you know, a lot of people think that this is a new signee, and it isn't. So I just wanted to put that out there. This article says, according to Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp via Fightful Select, Lance Anoia signed with WWE over the summer, but is currently sidelined with an injury. Sapp states that Anoia won't be cleared for a while, and there are no imminent creative plans for him in either NXT or the main roster at this time. This news comes shortly after the report that another member of the Bloodline, former New Japan Pro Wrestling star Hikuleo, has been signed internally and added to the roster. What do you make of this overall report? Are you excited to hear that Lance Anoia is signed to WWE, or do you think the Bloodline is quickly overtaking the entire company? Yeah, that sounds like NWO right there. Let us know what your thoughts are. Yeah, you know, I've watched MLW for probably over a decade. Over a decade. I think the person that got me into it is I saw a promo from the Filthy Tom Lawler, and then ever since I seen that, for some reason I started watching MLW. And Lance and Jacob and Juicy, they did some really good work at MLW. Jacob has some of my favorite matches in MLW history, specifically in pro wrestling in general. If you go back and watch his matches with him and Kruger, like there's so many different. Jacob, his last couple years in MLW, he put out bangers after bangers after bangers, and it was shocking given the fact of his size. I mean, he shrunk down now, but his size and how athletic he was, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just want to know how in the world are they going to extend this storyline by adding these members and making it make sense. That's because I feel like that after we wrap up this whole thing with Roman and The Rock and Cody and Jacob Fatu, I think you don't need to extend it more after that. Now, if they want a tag team to come out of this and they'll be named like the Bloodline, but they're not like having this big story again, then I guess they'll be fine. There'll be nothing wrong with that because they'll just be a tag team. Kind of like, you know, you got the Bullet Club, right? You got the Bullet Club and you got them in TNA, you got them everywhere. They may not be a part of the main storyline or a part of who the leader is, but they exist under the name of the Bullet Club, and there's something separate. So if they want to do something like that with the Bloodline, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind a Bloodline being in NXT, you know, and have nothing to do with the main storyline, or even if the main storyline is over, for them to have a tag team under that name. I wouldn't mind that at all. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Is this too much? Is this too many people being signed and joining the Bloodline? Are people talking about the Bloodline way too much? How do you feel about the storyline right now? For me, I honestly like it. I like where they're going as far as this whole thing with the Civil War and how Jay, you know, the whole thing with Jay and Roman Reigns, the issues with Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, especially after Sami kicked him in the face, the issues with Jimmy and Sami Zayn, and how it all changed. Where Jimmy was the person on the side of Sami Zayn, and Roman Reigns did welcome in Sami Zayn, which we all believe that, like, you know, Roman was setting him up for the fall. But we saw that Jay was the only person actually being the hater out of the group. And now the person who was his best friend, Jimmy, is being the hater out of the group so far. We don't know what Roman's going to do at this point. We're going to see this tonight, but it's going to be very interesting. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry about the yapping. I had coffee. So peace. Have a good day.